Hi friends, I'm Parvez and welcome to my another course on Amazon Web Services for Python developers. Now, this is about 2 hours training course. If you're interested on a complete course, about 24 hours training course, then you can join my course on Udemy. I've added the link in the video description. And the best thing is this, that I will regularly update this course. And the first time that I have published this course, it was 12 hours training course. Now it's about 24 hours training course, and this course will always be updated. Now, different sections that we have that we can work with Amazon Web Services and also Python. So like AWS IAM, Cloud Shell, Web Service, DynamoDB, S3, RDS, Elastic Cache, Compute Cloud, and also, for example, working with EBS, Elastic Load Balancer with Traft53, and Amazon Certificate Manager, Lambda functions, CloudFormation. Now there are different topics. Also, we have 2 practical projects with Django 4, with Amazon RDS, Elastic Beanstalk, and Route 53. Also, we have another project with Flask, Elastic Beanstalk, Code Pipeline, and also Amazon RDS. Now, this is a complete course, and if you're interested, you can just join this course. But this in this course that we are going to learn, it's 2 hours training course, and we are going to talk about the basic and fundamental concepts of working with Amazon Web Services with Python programming language. Now, let's get started. Now, in this lesson, we want to learn that how you can create your account in AWS and also how you can manage your resources or services. Now, if you see in here in the aws.amazon.com, so Amazon Web Services or AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. So AWS is a cloud platform offering over 200 fully featured services from data centers globally, millions of customers, including the fastest growing startups, largest enterprises, and leading government agencies are using AWS to lower costs. And so you can see that you can just go to the aws.amazon.com, and after that, from here you can just click on create an account. Now the first thing is that you need to create an account, and after clicking on this create an AWS account, you will see this page. Now in this page you can give your email address, and after that you need to just give your account name, and you need to verify your email address, after that there will be some process. You need to just add your payment method. You need to add your MasterCard, and after that your account will be created. Okay, now I already have created my account, and if you see in here, so this is my AWS account, and I already have created an account. So now first of all, let me just talk that how we can manage our AWS resources. Now this is our AWS console. Now there are 3 ways that you can manage AWS resources. Now the first way is AWS Management Console. Now this is the AWS Management Console. Now the console is a web interface where you can create, configure, and monitor AWS sources in your account. You can quickly identify the AWS services that are available for you and explore the functionality of those services. For example, in here you can see that I have opened RDS, EC2, or Elastic Beanstalk, or Route 53, S3, IAM. So you can just search in here. You can just click on this, or you can just click on View All Services, and it will show you all the services. So if I click on this, and let's just wait. So now you can see that we have all services, or you can just search any service that you want in here. So in the compute section, you can see we have services in the machine learning, and the containers, storage, database, analytics, migration and transfers, networking and content delivery. So you can see that you can see that in the front end, web and mobile, we have different sections. And as I've already said, that there are over 200 fully featured. That now you can see we have Internet of Things, and there are different sections on the game development. Okay, now this is the first way that, for example, you can just choose any service that you want. For example, RDS, you can just click on this and you can manage that from here. Now this is the first way. Okay, now the second way is the AWS SDK, or Software Development Kit. Now AWS SDKs are available in many popular programming languages. For example, we have for JavaScript, PHP, Python, Ruby, Go, and also C++. If you're interested on a complete courses on Python and also JavaScript, so I have a complete course on Amazon Web Services with Python and Boto 3. You can join this course. There are different topics on this course. Or if you're interested in JavaScript, I have a course on Amazon Web Services with other services with JavaScript and Node.js, and you can join this course, and there are different topics and sections in these courses. So if you're interested in these courses, I have added the link in the video description, and you can just join these courses. Okay, so now this was the second way. The third way is the AWS CLI, or AWS provides tool to manage AWS resources from the command line. One such tool is the AWS CLI, which is available on Windows, Linux, Unix, and also macOS. So the AWS CLI allows you to perform actions similar to do's from the SDKs built but in an scripting environment. So now let me just show you an example in here. So for example, in here I want to just access the Pulley services, Amazon Pulley services. Now it's a text-to-speech services with natural sounding speech. Okay, so from here I could just search Pulley. So now let me just so you can search from here, and you can see we have Amazon Pulley, and I can just click on this. So now in here you can see we have text to speech, and for example this is the language that you can choose the language, and this is the voice that you can choose. And also now let me just talk about something that these services are not free. Now when you create your account, there will be a free tier for you for 1 year. Now there are different free tiers for your services. For example, if you're using Amazon Pulley, there will be a free tier, and after when you completed your free tier, there will be charges on you. Now let me just open the free tier for the Amazon Pulley, for example. So now I'm in the documentation. You can see for the Amazon Pulley pricing details. Now for the free tier, we have millions of characters per month, and for Amazon Pulley standard voices, the free tier includes 5 million characters per month for speech or speech marks requests for the first 12 months. Now when you create your account, for all services, for majority of services, there will be free tiers that you can use. For example, for RDS or DynamoDB, or for example Amazon Pulley or EC2 or Elastic Beanstalk. So there will be a free tier for you for the 1 year that you can use that, and after that you need to pay for that. And you can see for the first 12 months starting from your first request to speech. And also there's a pricing pay as you go model, so you are billed monthly for the number of characters of text that you processed. Amazon Pulley's and standard voices are priced at $4 per 1 million characters for speech or speech marks. Now for example, when you have completed your free tier, then there will be charges for you. Okay, so now for example in here I'm going to just use from here you can just choose the voice. So I'm going to use the standard, and from here, for example, I want to just use this one, and let me change this to, for example, hello. And if I just so also we have additional settings. If I click on listen,
hello, please subscribe my channel. Hello, please subscribe my channel.
So now you can see that the text is converted to speech. Now this was the first way. For example, in here we have accessed the Amazon resources or Amazon services using the AWS Management Console. Also, for example, if you want to use any SDK, as I've already said that there I have 2 courses for the Python and also JavaScript. You can just join those courses for a complete lessons. Now in here I'm going to create a simple example of AWS SDK. For example, I want to use Python programming language. Now I have a complete 18 hours training course. If you want, you can join that course, or if you want the JavaScript and Node.js course, you can join that course. Okay, so for example, I want to access this service, Amazon Pulley, and for that what I want, so now I already have opened my PyCharm IDE. Now I'm using PyCharm IDE for the coding. Now the first thing is that you need to install the SDK for that programming language. For example, we have for the Python, we have Boto3. We need to install Boto3. For example, if we're using JavaScript, then there will be 2 versions. We have AWS SDK version 2 or AWS SDK version 3. Now for the more details, topics and lessons, you can just join my Udemy courses. I have added the link in the video description on the JavaScript and also on the Python. Okay, so for example, in here you can just say pip install Boto3 and hit enter. So, and it will be installed. So I already have installed Ubuntu 3 and I don't want to install it again. So you can see that there is no problem. Also, I've created a virtual environment. Now in here, what I want to create my Python file in here, and I can just call it, for example, Amazon Pulley, and I can just hit enter. Okay. After doing this, now the first thing is that we need to just import Ubuntu 3, and after importing of the Ubuntu 3, we need to just create our credentials. Okay, so now after installing of the Ubuntu 3, now I can just import Ubuntu 3. Now I have imported the Ubuntu 3, and after that you need to give your credentials, okay, for user credentials. Now there are two ways that you can add your client or for example configuration, your credential configuration, or you can add your access key or secret key. Now the first way is explicit client configuration, okay, that you need to just add that in your code. Okay, for this example, we're going to use this way, and I will talk about that in the later videos or later lessons. For right now, we're going to use explicit client configuration. Okay, so now the first thing is that I can just say pulley, and in here I can use ubuntu3.client. So ubuntu3.client, and now we have client and also we have resource. Now client is the lower level and resource is the higher level. So in here we're going to use client. Okay, and we need to give the service name, that is pulley. Now, for example, if you're using your configuration explicitly, then in here you need to add your, for example, your region name, your access key, and also AWS secret key. Okay. Now, when you're using a service in AWS, then you need to tell to AWS that in which region you want to use, or for example, what is your authorization or access key or secret keys. Okay, now how you can create that? The first thing is that you need to so this is my account. You need to just go to the IAM, so in here, and from here you can just create your IAM user. So now what's IAM? If you see the documentation of Amazon, so AWS Identity, it's AWS Identity and Access Management. It provides the fine-grained access control across all of the AWS. With IAM, you can specify who can access which services and resources. For example, you will have more users. For example, you want that one user should access to Amazon AWS, or one user should access to the DynamoDB, another user should access to the Amazon Pulley, or another user should access to the, for example, RDS. For that, for example, you can just use the IAM or Identity and Access Management. Okay. And you can see that resource and under which condition. With IAM policies, you manage permissions to your workforce and system to ensure least privilege permissions. Okay, so also in here you can see that that's offered no additional. IAM is an AWS service that's offered at no additional charge. There will be no charges for you. To get started, we need to just go to the app in here, and after that you can see that this is our IAM. In here, if I click on the users, right now you can see that I don't have any user. I want to add a new user in here. I can just click on add users. Maybe I will talk about this users section a lot, but for right now we want to create a user. So in here we need to give the username. For example, I can just give a username like this, and after doing that, so let me just give it like this. Okay, so after doing that, in here you need to select AWS access type. Okay, now select how these users will primarily access AWS. So in here we need to tell that this user how they can access the AWS. If you choose only programmatic access, so you can see we have programmatic access and AWS Management Console. Now if we choose programmatic access, then it does not prevent users from accessing the console using the unassumed rule. Now, for example, if you want to use, then you can access, then this user can access the AWS resources using the SDKs like Python or JavaScript or C++. If you're using this AWS Management Console access, then the user will be able to log in through this console. For example, from here you can sign out, and that user will be logged in. Okay. Later you can change this. For example, if you have a user that's created with the programmatic access, then you can extend this, and you can add another feature that this user will also be able to use the AWS Management Console. Now for right now, because we're using Python and we want to access this user should access our resources using the Python, by that reason I want to just choose programmatic access. Okay, After doing that, we need to add the permissions. Okay, now in here we need to add our permission. Now it's important point that we need to just specify the permission for that user. Now so in here we right now we're not going to talk about the user group, or we are not going to copy permissions, but in here we need to attach an existing policies directly. Now what is this policy? If you see in here, we have different policies in this section. Now the policies allow that which AWS resources this user should access. For example, in here we want to create this user. If you see, we are creating a Amazon Pulley example. Now I want that this user should access just the Amazon Pulley resource, and I don't want that this user should access all the resources. For example, if you want to give a user all the access to the AWS resources, then you can just use administrator access. Then if you use this, the user will be able to access all the Amazon or AWS resources. Okay, and you can see that there are different one. We have Amazon Athena full access, or so for example in here we want to use the Pulley, and I can just search Amazon Pulley, and you can see Amazon Pulley full access. Okay, and also we have read only, but we want the this full access. Now when we attach this policy to this user, then this user will be just able to access the Amazon Pulley. He will not able to access the RDS, or for example another resources that we have like DynamoDB, because we haven't attached any policy. We are attaching just Amazon Pulley full access policy to this user. And if you see in here, we have so this is our JSON format, and here I can just choose this. Now this is the policy JSON version. Okay, and the effect is allowed, action is Pulley all. It means that read write on Pulley. And now I can just click on next tag. I don't want to add any tag in here. Next review, and now this is the review, this is the username, this is the AWS access key, and also this is the permission boundary, and this is the policy that we want to use, Amazon Pulley full access. After that, I can just click on create user. So now the user is created. This is the user, this is the access key, and also the secret key. Okay, now as I've already said that in here we are going to use explicit client configuration. Now in here after giving the service in here I can just give the region name. So first I need to just specify the region name. Now also let me talk about the regions. There are different regions that you can use in AWS. So if I click on this, you can see that there are a bunch of regions that you can use, and you can use anyone that's near to you. Okay, now the default region is US East 1. I'm using this one, US East 1. This is the default one, and it's created, but you can use any of these. So now the region name up in here, I want to just say region name, and I can just say US East 1. And if you see in here, we have the region US East 1. As I've already said that I'm using this one as a default. After that, you need to specify the AWS access key. So I can just say AWS access key, and from here I can just copy the access key, and like this, let me paste it in here. And after that, we are going to just use AWS secret key, and I can just add that in here also. So AWS secret key, and I can just show that, and I can just copy that, and let me paste it in here. Okay, so now I have my secret key and also access key. After doing this, now we need to just create a result in here, and I can just say Pulley dot I can just use Sonnet size speech, and I can just give the text in here. So for example, please subscribe to my channel, and also I need to just give the output so it should be output format, and it should be MP3 output format. And after that, we need to just give the voice ID, and I can just use, for example, Kendra. Okay, so after doing that, I want to save the audio, and for that I can just say audio and result, and I can use audio stream. So audio stream dot read and I can just say with open, and I can just give a name. For example, I can just say my file.mp3, and I can give the mode, and after that I can just say as file. Okay, and in here I can just say file.write, and I can just say audio. Okay, so now we are done with this. Let's just run this, that we will have something in here or not. So let me just run this. Argument AWS access key, line boto3.client. So got an unexpected keyword argument. I think we have okay, it should be AWS secret. So we have type of AWS access key ID. This should be key ID, and this should be AWS secret. This should be access key. So access key. Okay, and now let's run it again. Okay, so now you can see we haven't received any error, and you can see that we have my file.mp3. Now if I open this, so I can just go open Explorer, and from here if I just open this,
Please subscribe to my channel.
so you can see that we have the speech.
Please subscribe to my channel.
So like this you can access the AWS resources. So you can use, also you can use AWS CLI, you can access that. So in here we have used the AWS Management Console, and also any SDK we have used Python, but you can use any other one. Also, if you're interested on a complete course on Python, Boto3, and also JavaScript and Node.js, you can just join my courses in Udemy. In the previous example, we have learned that how we can use explicitly our credentials, but it's not recommended to use the credentials explicitly. So for example, in here you can see that we have added our secret key ID and also secret access key explicitly, but it's not recommended to use the credentials explicitly. Now the best way for configuration of AWS SDK is to configure the SDK credentials separately from the application source code. To configure an AWS access key on your local machine in a local file, there are two ways that you can do. Now the first way is to create credentials file. You can just create a credential file in the .aws folder, in the home folder for the current user. Within this file, specify credentials for the default profile. Now for example, in your this PC local disk C users, in here you can just create a .aws. For example, in here you can just say .aws. It should be .aws, and you can just add your configuration. Okay, so this is the first way. Now the easiest way is that you can just use the AWS CLI. Okay, so now if you see in here, you can see that we have install update the AWS CLI. Also, before that, if you're interested on a complete courses on Amazon Web Services with Python and Boto3, or Amazon Web Services with JavaScript and Node.js, I have complete course. You can just join that on Udemy, and I've added the link in the video description. Okay, so now install, update, and uninstall the AWS CLI. You can install version 1 of AWS Command Line Interface AWS CLI on Windows by using a standalone installer recommended, or pip. You can download an installer, or you can use pip. Okay, so I already have installed it. If you're using pip, so you can just use it like this: pip3 install AWS CLI, and it will be installed. Okay, so now let me just talk that how we can configure that using the AWS CLI. So now to configure this, now I have opened this. First you need to just install as I've already said, that you need to install the AWS CLI. After that I can just say AWS configure, so configure, hit enter. And right now if you see, I don't have any .aws, so let's just wait. And now it will ask for the credentials, but for that first we need to just create our user. So I can just go to the IAM, and in here I'm going to create my user. So let me just click on user. So I have just one user, and this user will access to just pulley access. I can just click on add user, and from here So we want to just create a user that should have a fully access management. So let me just say, for example, new user, and let me just say next, and I can just attach a policy. I want to just give administrator access, a full access policy. Click on next, next, and create the user. And I've already said that you can just restrict the user. Now in here, the first thing is that we need to add the access key ID, hit enter, and after that we need to just copy the secret key, and the default region is US East 1. So if you see the region, and let me just show you, I'm using this US East 1, and also I've used that in here. So I'm going to use US East 1. After that, hit enter, and this should be JSON, hit enter. Okay, so now that's created, and if I check here, you can see I have a .aws, and this is the configure, and this is the credentials, and here these will be my credentials. Okay, so you can just check this. There will be your access key ID, region name, and also secret key. Okay, so now this time what I want, I'm going to remove this from here, and now I don't need this because now I have that, I have added the credentials in my local file. Now if I save this, and if I delete this sound, and let me delete this, okay, and delete anyway, okay, and let me just run it again. So now we're not receiving any error. It means that we are done, and now we have our file. And if I open this Explorer, and if I run this,
Please subscribe to my channel.
and you can see that we are done. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about IAM and also IAM users. Now, I already have talked about this in the first videos, but in this video, we want to learn this in details. Okay, so now, first of all, what is IAM? Now, it stands for AWS Identity and Access Management, and AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM, provides a fine-grained access control across all of AWS resources. With IAM, you can specify who can access which services and resources, and under which conditions with IAM policies. You manage permissions to your workforce and systems to ensure least privilege permissions. Now, when you create an AWS account, you create an AWS account root user identity. So you can see in here we have root user and also we have IAM user. Okay, so by the first time when you create your AWS account, then you create an account root user identity, which you use to sign in into your AWS account. You can sign in into the AWS Management Console using this root user identity. That's the email address and password that you provided when creating the account. This combination of your email address and password, also called your root user credentials. When you use your root user credentials, you have complete unrestricted access to all resources in your AWS account, including access to your billing information and the ability to change your password. Now, this level of access is necessary when you first set up your account. So after that, we have IAM user. So we have root user and also we have IAM user. Now, an IAM user is an entity that you create in AWS. So the IAM user represents the person or service who uses the IAM user to interact with AWS. A primary user for IAM users is to give people the ability to sign into AWS Management Console for interactive tasks and to make programmatic requests to AWS services using the API or CLI. Also, a user in the AWS consists of a name, a password to sign in into the AWS Management Console, and also up to 2 access keys, and can be used with the API or CLI calls. So we already talked about the programmatic access and how we can create, for example, secret key, or for example, how we can create our access keys. Okay. So now, first let me just create, I already have created my account. Now I need to just sign in as a root user. After that, I will create an IAM user. So now let me just give my root user email address and also password. So now I'm in my account. Let me just click on IAM. So now I want to just create my IAM user, and I already have talked about creating of the IAM user in the first video. So now from here I can just go to the users, and right now you can see I have 2 users. Let's just click on add user, and from the add user now I want to create my user. So let me just say test, for example. Now we already have talked about the programmatic access and also AWS Management Console. So for example, if you use this, it enables an access key and also secret key for the AWS API or CLI or SDK you can use. Or for example, if you're using this, then you will be able to for example, log in through the AWS Management Console. Okay, also you can use both of them, but for right now I'm going to just use this AWS Management Console, and I want to use it like this. Okay, I don't want to use programmatic access. After that, we can just so in here you need to just create a password. Let me just say auto generated. Click on next. So now in here you need to just create your policy. Now IAM users are identities in the service. When you create an IAM user, they can't access anything in your account until you give them permissions. So you give permissions to user by creating an identity-based policy, which is a policy that is attached to the user or a group to which the user belongs. Okay, so you can see that there are different policies that you can use. So administrator full access policy, or for example, I want to just that this user should just access to the, for example, DynamoDB. And DynamoDB full access. I can just click on this, click on next, and next review, and create user. Okay, so now the user is created. So let's just wait. So now I have this user. This is my password, and let me just copy this password. So I have copied the password. After that, also I need this. Let me just copy this and let me paste that in here. So I don't want to save. Now let me just log out from this root user, sign out. So now in here, now I want to use as an IAM user, so they are users that I have created. So this is the user ID. I can just copy that, and so this should be the user ID, and I can paste it in here, click on next. And now this is my username, and also I need to just add my password, and I can paste it in here, click on sign in. So now first we need to just change the password. I can just make this to like this. So first I need to just give the old password, and after that I need to just give the new password. So I can just copy this, and I can paste it in here, paste it in here, and click on confirm password change. So for the first time, because there's a policy, that password change policy for the users, for the IAM users, by this reason, in the first time you will need to change that. You can disable that, you can remove that and detach that policy if you don't want. So right now you can see that we have this user. Now this user, just as I've already said, that this user just can access to the DynamoDB. Now this user doesn't have any full administrator access policy. So now if I go to the, for example, services, if I go to the so DynamoDB and DynamoDB, now this user will be able to create, for example, MySQL DB instances, Postgres DB instances. This user can, but for the other services this user cannot. Okay, so it can create the DynamoDB. But if I go to, for example, a service that is that's not, that this user doesn't have the permission, he will not be able. For example, if I go to Amazon S3, and because we don't have any attached policy for the Amazon S3, we have just DynamoDB policy, and this time this user will not be able to access the S3. Okay, so now if I go here, and okay, so you can see you don't have permission to list buckets because we don't have any policy for this, but we have just DynamoDB full access policy, and this user will be able to create MySQL or Postgres DB instances. Now, for example, if you give a full administrator access, then on that time, this user will be able to, for example, to access all the AWS resources. And now we have this user, and let me just log in back to my root user. So now back I am in the IAM users, I can just go to the users. So this was the new user that I have created, and let me just click on this. Also, you can attach, for example, multiple policies. So you can see this is the permission. And if you see in here, we have Amazon DynamoDB full access policy. You can delete this if you want. You can just delete that from here, or you can also add another permission from here. Okay. So, for example, you can just click on add permissions and attach existing policy. For example, also I want to just give the S3 policy, Amazon S3 full access policy, and click on next and add permission. So now this is added, and now you can see we have two permissions. Now if I log in through this user will be able to access the DynamoDB, and also this user will be able to access the Amazon S3. Okay. So now like this, you can just create a user, and also you can just attach policy to that user. Also, you can see that we have the user ARN. So for example, when you want to log in through this user, then you need this a user ID. This is the username, and these are the permissions. Now we don't have any group for this user. We will talk about the group. This is the tags. We don't have any tag, and also you have security credentials. Now we will talk about this in the next video. So, but let me just talk that about this in here. So if you remember that this user, we have created this user, but we have just created this user for the AWS Management Console login, and we haven't added the programmatic access to this. And you can see that the console password, it's enabled, but for the access key, we don't have any access key for this user. For example, if you want to create an access key, you can just click on create access key, and from here, so you can see that the access key is created, and now that's added. Okay, now this user will be able to log in through the AWS Management Console. Also, this user will be able for the programmatic access of the AWS resources. Now in this lesson, we want to learn about IAM user group. Now, first of all, what is IAM user group? Now, an IAM user group is a collection of IAM users. You can use user groups to specify permissions for a collection of users, which can make those permissions easier to manage for those users. For example, you could have a user group called RDS admins and give those users group the type of permissions that they can just use and manage RDS functionalities, like creating MySQL database, Postgres database, and adding data to those databases. Now, IAM groups do not have their own credentials, but when an IAM user makes an API call with their access key, AWS look up that user's group memberships and find the relevant permissions policies. So now I'm in my AWS console, so let me just click on IAM. So now you will see that right now I don't have any user group, so I want to create two groups. Now for the first user, so right now if I go to the user groups, you can see that I don't have any user group, and if I go to the users, I have some users. So this user, this user, this user. Now I want to just create two new user. Let me just create, so add a user. So let me just create the user. So for example, I can just say RDS admin. So, or we can just say RDS user. Okay, so let me just say RDS user. So we can just say we can access that through the AWS Management Console, next permission. So now first we are going to create our groups, and after that we will create our users, because we need to add that, even though we can add that later. Okay, so now we can just go to the user groups, and in here we want to create a group. Okay, so for example, for the first group, I want to just say RDS admins. For example, I want to add the users that they should be able to just work on RDS functionalities. For example, what's RDS? It's a relational database service. You can create MySQL database, Postgres database, or any other type of databases. Now, for example, I want to add the users that they just, for example, they create MySQL databases, or they can work just with the functionalities of RDS or relational database services. Okay. And after that, from here, if you want, you can add any user. For right now, I don't want to any user in here. Now, from this section, you need to attach a permission policy. So as the name suggests, for example, we are giving RDS admins, and this group is related to the RDS functionalities. So we want to just attach the RDS full access policy to this group. Okay. So for example, up in here, I can just say RDS, I think it was full admin access. I don't know, it was like this, or so if I search this in the second page, so I should see that. So RDS. Okay, so now this is Amazon RDS full access. Okay, so now if I see the JSON, so you can see that we have RDS all, and for example, we have delete scaling policy. Now this is a full access policy, and we want to just give, you can see that the effect is allow and resources all. Now we want to just give this to this RDS users. Okay, so this RDS admin group. Okay, so I can just choose this, and after that I can just click on create group. So now the first group is created, but right now if you see, the permission is defined, but we don't have any user in here. Okay, now let's create another group, and I want to just say, for example, S3 admins. Now in here I want to add the users that they should be able just to work on S3. Okay, and from here we can just search for the policy. So I can just say S3. Let me just search S3. We have you can see that we have Amazon S3. You can use, for example, you can use read-only access, but I want to give a full access. For example, they can write, read, and delete, or delete, for example, S3 buckets. Okay, so I can just choose this, and after that I want to just create the group. Click on create group. Okay, so now we have two groups, but right now we don't have any users. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. Now let's create users. So I want to add one user to this group and one user to this group, but you can add a lot of users to these groups. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 500. Okay, but I want to just add one user for this group, that they should be able to for example, work on RDS functionality or relational database service functionalities, and another one to S3 admins that the user will be able to work on simple storage. Okay, so let's just go to the users, and from here, even though I have some users, but I want to just create a new user, so let me just click on add user, and in here I can give the user RDS, for example, let me just say RDS user. Okay, RDS user, and I want it should be AWS Management Console. Click on next. Okay, so now in here we don't want to attach the policy directly. Now if you remember from the first videos, that when we create our users, for example, when you create your user, you need to attach a policy to that user. For example, if you attach administrator access, now that user will be able to have a full access to our AWS account. For example, you can just search for any specific product that you want to give to that. Okay, but in here we don't want to directly add the permission. We have group, we want to add this user to that group, and that group has the permission. Okay, the policy permission. So I can just choose RDS admins, and after that I can just click on next. I don't want to add any tag in here. Review, and now create user. I forgot. Okay, so now we have, okay, so now we have this. Now we want to just copy. First I want to just copy this one from here. Now that the name is RDS user, and I can just say RDS user, and we want to show the password because we will need this password. Okay, it's not copied. Copy, and I can just paste it in here. Okay, so this is the password. Let's close this, and now let's add another user. Okay, so now the RDS user is created. Let's just click on add user, and this time I want to just say S3 user. Okay, so it should be S3 user, and after that password, you can change the password, but I want to generate a password. Next, and now I want to just add that to S3 admins, and click on next. I don't want to add any tag, and create user. Okay, so now the second user is created. I can just copy this, and this is S3 user, so S3 user, and after that I can just show the password, and I can just copy this password and I can paste it in here. Okay, so now we have two groups, and now if I go to my user groups, you will see that now I have two users that they are located in the different groups. Okay, so if I go to the user groups, so now you will see I have one user in here, and if I click on this, so this are this user, and if I click on this, and this is 3 users. Okay, now we want to just log out from our this account. First I want to log in through this user, and we want to check that this user is able, now this user will be able to just access the RDS or relational database service functionalities. And now let me just log out this, sign out this. So now in here we want to choose the IAM user. First we want to just give this ID from here, and let me just copy this and let me paste it in here. After that we want to click on next, and in here we need to give the username, so that is RDS user. So let me just copy and paste this, and after that we want to give the password. Now this is the password. Let's paste it. It will be okay. Now we need to just add a new password because that policy is attached by default to this user, and for the new password I want to just change this to B. Confirm password change. So let's just, okay, so now we are logged in as RDS user. Okay, so right now if I go to for example RDS, now even though right now we haven't learned about the RDS, but this user is able to, for example, create RDS, create MySQL database or Postgres database. So it's relational database service that we will talk this in the later part of the course. And right now, now the point is this, that okay, so you can see that this user can create database or can work, so we don't have any warning or anything in here. Okay, but if this user, for example, if I go back, if I open, for example, S3 service, and let's just go to this 3, even though Amazon Pool is not working, but let me go back. So now let's just go to this 3. And let's just wait. Okay, so you can see that you don't have permission to list buckets. We don't have any permission to create buckets, to list buckets, because after you or your AWS administrator have updated your permissions to allow S3 list my buckets action, refresh this page. Okay, right now this user or this user doesn't have access to all services. This user just can access to RDS functionalities. Okay, because we have a group that we have attached the RDS full access policy to that user group. Okay, so now I want to just log out from this user, and I want to just log into this 3 users. So let me just sign out from here. So now in here we need to first give the account ID. So this is the account ID. Let me just copy that. After that we need to give the username, so that is S3 user. And also we need to give the password. And let me just copy and paste that. Let's sign in. Okay, change password, for example. Let me just change this. First, let me just add the old password, and now So we have the new password and confirm password change. So now we are logged in as S3 user. And now this user just have access to the S3 functionality. So if I go to S3, and you will see that now we will not see any warning or error. Now this user, okay, so now you can see you can create a bucket if you want. From here you can just create bucket, or you can, for example, delete bucket, or you can, for example, upload files or images in the bucket. Now this user has full access policy to the Amazon S3, okay, but this user cannot use another services like, for example, Amazon RDS or Amazon Pulley or EC2 or like these services. Okay, so this is the main concept on IAM user group. In the previous lessons, we have learned about basic and fundamental concepts of IAM users, and also we have learned that how we can create our IAM user using AWS Management Console. Now in this lesson, we want to learn that how you can create users using Python and also Boto3. So now I already have opened my PyCharm IDE. Now in here, the first thing is that we need to import Boto3. So I can just say import Boto3, and after doing that, now I can just say diff, for example, user example, and in here I can just say username. Okay, so when you want to create a user, IAM user, you need to pass the username. And after doing that, we need to create our IAM. So I can just say IAM boto3.client. Okay. So now there are two types of APIs. So we have client and also resources. Now client provides a low-level interface to the AWS and resources and to the AWS resources, and also the resources itself are a higher level of abstraction compared to the client. Also, resources are not available for all AWS services. Now, in some points, you need to use client. For example, if the services are not available with the resources, we will also use resources. But in here, we want to just use client. Now, client is the low level, but there's a recommendation that you use the resources if the service is available in the resources. But if the service is not available, then you can just go through the client, okay? So we can just say IAM boto3.client, and after that in here, I can just say IAM, okay? So now, after doing that, I can just create a response, and I can just say IAM, and we can use .create user, okay? So create user, and in here we can just say username and username, okay? And after that, we are going to just print the response. Now we can just call our this user example function, and for example, I can just create a user at name of Python. So right now, if I just go to my IAM users, so let me just click on IAM, you will see that I have some users, but I don't have this user. Now I want to create this user using Python and also Boto3. It's just simple. You need to just create your the client or resources, and here I'm using client. After that, you can just use create user, and for creating of the user, you need to pass the username, okay? So now we are in the AWS Management Console. So right now, if I just go to the users, and now you can see that I have some users, but I don't have that user in here, okay? So now if I just run this, you will see that this user will be created, okay? So let's just run it, and let's wait. So now you can see that the user is created. This is the path. This is the response that we have received. Now this is the username we have given Python. We have a user ID for that. Also we have an ARN, Amazon resource name for that user. So this is the ARN, and we have the creation date, and we have some more information about this. Now let's check that we have this user in our AWS Management Console or not. If I just refresh the users, so now you can see that we have Python user, and if I just click on this, you will see a bunch of information about this user, about this Python user, okay? Let's wait. Okay, so now you can see that this is the ARN, this is the creation time. Right now we don't have any policy and also permission to this user, but we will work on that, we will add that. But right now we have just a simple user that we have created using Python and also Boto3. Right now we have created our simple user using Python and also Boto3. Now in this lesson I want to show you that how you can list all the users using Python and also Boto3. So right now if you see we have more users, some users in our IAM AWS Management Console. We want to just list all the users using Python and also Boto3. So now the first thing is that we need to import Boto3, and after doing that now I can just say def all users, or I can just say, for example, list, we can just say list all, and after that we need to create our IAM. So boto3.client, and this is our IAM. So now we are going to create a paginator. Now for right now, if you see, we have just users that are in the first page. Now maybe you will have more users that are in another pages, and there should be, you need to use paginator. So I can just say paginator, and I can just say IAM.get paginator. So, and in here I can just say list users. Okay, so this is for the paginator, and after doing that, now we can just iterate through that. So for response in paginator dot paginate, so dot paginate, and in here now we can just iterate through the user. So for user and response, and we can just say users. Okay, and from here what we need the username. So I can just say username, and so user username, so username, and also I need the ARN, so the ARN or Amazon resource name for that user. So I can just say ARN. Now we can just print that, so print, and I can just say so username, and this is the username, and also the ARN, so this is the ARN dot format. We can just pass the username and also ARN, so username and also ARN. So now let's just call our this list all function. So I can just say list all, and if I just run this, you will see that I have my all users. Okay, so let's wait. Okay, list users, paginator IAM.get paginator, okay, so it should be list underscore users. And now let's just run it. So now you will see that I have some users, and you can see that these are the users that I have. So this is the user, this is the user, this is the ARN, and this is the newest user that we have created using Python, also Boto3. So like this, you can just list all the users with the ARN. In this lesson, we want to learn that how we can create a policy using Python. Now, right now we have a user in here, but there is no permission or policies. Now, we already have talked about the policies. Now, we already have learned that IAM users are identities in the service. When you create an IAM user, they can't access, or they cannot access anything in your account until you give them permissions. You give permissions to a user by creating an identity-based policy, which is a policy that's attached to the user or a group to which the user belongs. So now, for example, if you want to give a permission using, right now you can see that we have this Python user that we already have created using Python. For example, if you want to attach a policy from the console, you can just go to that add permissions. Right now you can see that in the permission policies, this user doesn't have any permission yet. It means that this user cannot access the services. Okay, so for example, if I go to that permission, and from here we can just attach an existing policy. Now you can see that there are different policies that you can use. So let's just wait. So for example, from here you can choose a policy. For example, if you give administrator access, then it means that you can give all permissions to this user. Or for example, there are different, for example, if you search, you can search Amazon RDS, for example, full access. Now if you give this permission to this user, then this user will be able to do or just access the RDS or relational database service. Okay, so for example, we want to just give a full administrator access. So if you see that this is a JSON based policy, so provide a full access to AWS resources. So if I check the policy summary, and if I come down, So you can see that this is the policy, and for example I can just choose this, and also we can check the JSON from here. So you can see that this is the we will write this using to create using Python and Boto3, but right now you can see that this is the version, this is the statement, this is the effect is allow. It means the all actions and all resources, because it's administrator access. Now this user can do all actions to all resources of our account AWS services, and you can just click on next review and add permission. Okay, and now let's wait. Okay, so now if I just go to this user, you will see that now I have a policy in here, and that's attached. Okay, and now this user can do anything to with our AWS account. He can, for example, create another IAM users, or he can do relational database services. So I'm going to just delete this. Now we want to create this using Python, so I'm going to just remove this policy, and right now we don't have any policy in here. Let's just go here, and I'm going to create another Python file in here, and let me just say create policy. So now the first thing is that we are going to just import Boto3. So I can just say import Boto3, and also we need to just import JSON. So import JSON, and now we can just say diff create underscore policy. So we want to create a policy. So first of all we need to create our IAM, and I can just say IAM Boto3.client. So IAM. Now we need to just give the policy, so user policy. Now we need to create a JSON policy. For this we want to create a administrator access policy. Okay, so first I have showed you, first you need to give the version in here, and this is the version for that, and after giving the version, now we need to just give the statement. Okay, so statement, and then the statement and here we need to just give the effect. So the effect is allow. You can also give deny, so we want to just use allow, and action. So now the action is all, and also the resource. So you can just say resource, it's also all resources. Okay, so now we have our this user policy. After that we are going to create a response in here, so response, and we can use im.create policy. So create policy, create underscore policy. Okay, so now in here the first thing is that we need to give the policy name, and I can just say policy name, and I can just say Python full access, for example, and also we need to give the policy document. So policy document, and that is json.dumps, and we are going to just use the user policy. So after doing that, now we can just print the response in here. So print response, and now we need to just call our this create policy. Okay, so at the bottom we need to call our create policy function, and now if I run this, you will see that it will create. Right now it will not be attached to the user that we have in here, but it will be created, and we can access that using the policies. Okay, we will attach that in the next lesson, but right now we have this policy, and now if I just run this, it will create a Python full access policy for us. So let's just run it, and now let's wait. Okay, so now we can see that the policy is created. This is the policy name, the policy ID, the policy ARN, the path that's created. And now if I just search this in here in the policies, and if I search this, hit enter. So let me refresh this once. Okay, so now you can see that we have Python, it's custom managed. It means that we have created this, and now if you see in here, now this is the policy JSON file that we have created, effect allow, action all, and also resources all. In the previous lesson, we have created administrator full access policy using Python. So you can see that this is the policy that's Python full access. Now, right now, this is not attached to a user. If you remember, we had a user. So if I go to the users, we have created a user. So at name of Python. Now this is our users. Right now, if you go to the permissions, we don't have any permission. Okay, so you want to attach that policy to this user using Python. So now the first thing is that I'm going to create another Python file, and let me just call it attach. So attach policy, and after that we need to just import Boto3, and after importing the Boto3 we need to just say diff attach policy. So I can just create a function in here, and we need to pass the policy ARN, so ARN, and also the username. And now we need to create our Boto3 client, so dot client, and I can just say IAM. And after that, let me create a response in here, and I can just say IAM, and we can just use attach user policy. So dot attach underscore user underscore policy. Now in here, we need to just pass the username. So the username is username, and also the policy ARN. So policy ARN, and that is policy ARN. Okay, so now let's just call this attach policy function in here. Now first we need to just give the policy ARN. Now if you check, if I go to the policies, and if you remember that we have created this policy that was Python full access, and if I just go to the policies, first we need to just copy the ARN of that, and after that we need the user. Okay, so let me just find this, and if I just click on this, so now we should see the policy ARN. Okay, so now this is the policy ARN. I can just copy this, and after that also we need the user. So let me just go to the users. So in here we need to just add the ARN, so I can just paste it, and after that we need to give the username. Okay, so the username was Python that we already have created, so like this. Okay, so you want to attach this policy to this user, and also we can just print a response in here. So print response, and now let's just run it. Okay, so now you can see that we have received the response. This the status code, that's 200. It means that the policy is attached to that user. And if I just go to this user, you'll see that now we have a permission policy to this user. And now you can see that we have Python full access policy that's attached to this user. Okay, and also you can check that in here. In this lesson, I want to show you that how you can list all policies from AWS using Python and also Boto3. So now the first thing is that we need to import Boto3. So I can just import Boto3, and after that you can just hit diff list policies. Okay, so I want to just list all the policies, and now we need to create an IAM. So Boto3.client, an IAM client, and after that, now if you see we have a pagination in this policies, we will have different policies in these pages. So for that reason, the first thing is that we need to create a paginator. I can just say paginator, and IAM dot get paginator, and I can just say list policies. So list underscore policies. So after doing that, we can just say for response and paginator dot paginate, and we need to give, now there are different scopes that you can use. For example, we have we can use local scope. For example, we can use AWS. Now in here, for example, if you want to list the policies from the AWS, or we can say managed policies that are related, not custom policies that we have created, then for that you can just use scope in here and scope, and I can just say, for example, AWS. Okay, so I want to just list all the AWS policies, not the custom policies that's created by me. So now I can just say for policy and response, and I can just say policies, and after doing that, now we want to just say the policy name, and policy, and we want the policy name and also policy ARN. And I can just say policy name and also the ARN, so ARN and policy ARN. And now we can just print this, so I can just say print, and I can just say policy name, so policy name and also ARN dot format. I can just say policy name, so policy name and also ARN. Okay, and after doing that we need to just call this list policies, so list policies. Now if I just run this, you'll see that I have my all policies in here. Let's just wait, and that are the AWS policies. You can see that these are the policies, policy name, that they are related to the AWS. Okay, so like this. In this lesson, I want to show you that how we can create a login profile. Now, right now, if you see, we have our user, and you can see also we have attached full administrator access policy to this user. But right now, if I go to the security credentials, you can see that the console password is not enabled, and that's disabled. It means that this user cannot log in through the AWS Management Console. If you want to enable this using the AWS Management Console, you can just click on Manage, and after that you can just enable this. Okay, so you can just enable the console access. Now we want to enable this using the Python code. So now I already have created my login profile Python file. Now the first thing is that we are going to import Boto3, and after importing of the Boto3, now we can just say diff create login. Okay, and we can pass username in here. So now we need to create a Boto3 client, so I can just say IAM Boto3.client IAM, and after doing that we can just say login profile and IAM.create, so we can use create login profile. Create login profile. Now the first thing is that we need to add a password. We need a password. For example, I can just say password we should have, for example, one uppercase. I can just make it like this at 1. Okay, and after that, if you want that for the first login there should be a password reset, then you need to make this to true. Okay, so password reset required, so required. And for example, you can just make it true, but I don't want the password reset, so I can just make it so false, password reset required. And after that we need to just say username to the username. Okay, now after doing that we can just print our login profile, so login profile, and after that we can just say create. We can just call our this create login function, and for the Python user that we already created, we want to enable the management console or console password. So now let's just run it, and let's just wait. So it will take a little bit. Okay, so now we can see that the login profile has been created, and now if I just refresh this, so let me just refresh it, and you will see that now the console password is enabled, and also we can just log in through that. So let's just wait. So now we can see that this is now enabled, but right now never signed in. It means that we haven't signed in here. So now I'm going to just copy this. So let me just let me just open a new browser, and from here I can just copy this. This is the sign-in link. I can just go here. So now in here you can see that this is the account ID, and after that we need to give the IAM username, so that was Python, and also we need to give the password that we already have given in here, so we have created through the Python code. And let's just add the password. Let's click on sign in. Now this is a full administrator access user, and because we already have attached that policy to this user, so if I go to the permissions, and if I go to the policies, to attached policy, now this user have complete access to our AWS console. For example, now this user cannot do anything with our billing management, but this user can do with the services in our AWS account. Okay, for example, this user can create another user can create, for example, EC2 instances, and because we have actions all and resources all. Okay, so right now you can see that this is the and from here, and okay, so now this is the user and this is the Python user. Okay, so like this you can enable the login profile for an IAM user using Python and also Boto3. Now that we have learned about some concepts in AWS, and we have learned that how we can make API calls from our local machine, now it's time to talk about AWS Cloud. So AWS provides a broad set of compute options through different services. We have Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud or Amazon EC2, Amazon Lightsail, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, Amazon Elastic Container Service or Amazon ECS, and also AWS Lambda. In this lesson, we are going to talk about Amazon EC2. So first of all, what is Amazon EC2? Now, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud or Amazon EC2 provides a scalable computing capacity in the Amazon Web Services or AWS Cloud. Using Amazon EC2 eliminates your need to invest in hardware upfront, so you can develop and deploy applications faster. You can use Amazon EC2 to launch as many or as few virtual servers as you need, configure security and networking, and manage storage. It allows you to launch compute resources on the AWS Cloud. With Amazon EC2, you have the flexibility to choose the hardware resources you need. You're in control of the operating system and any other software that will run on the instances. An Amazon EC2 instance runs on a host machine within a specific AWS availability zone. Typically, Amazon EC2 instances provides virtualized access to the underlying host machine resources using combination of hardware and software components. Instances presents a virtualized interfaces to machine resources to the operating system. So now let's just practically create this. So you can just search in here in your AWS Management Console. Now we want to create an Amazon Linux AMI. So you can just search that EC2 and you can just click on the EC2. And also it comes under the free tier, and there are some instances that you can use under the free tier. I will talk about that. So right now we can see that this is the dashboard of the EC2. So we have resources. Right now we don't have any resource instance running, and we are interested to create an Amazon Linux AMI instance. So you can see that in here we have launch instance, and from here we can just click on this and launch instance. So now in here you can see that Amazon EC2 allows you to create virtual machines or instances that run on the AWS Cloud. Quickly get started by the following simple step below. So the first thing is that we need to give the name for that. For example, I can just name it YT lesson. So this is the name for example, for my instance. And after that, now this is the important point, and in here we need to choose an image in here. Okay, so a software image. So you can see that application and on an OS image or Amazon machine image, or we can say AMI. Now when the server first boots, it requires an operating system or OS and the configuration of the attached storage volume. Now an Amazon machine image or AMI provides the template for the OS and applications on the root volume of your instance. AMIs also provide a block device mapping that can specify additional volumes to mount when an instance launches. AWS provides a variety of AMIs. Paid AMIs are available through the AWS Marketplace. You can create your own AMIs from an Amazon EC2 instance that you have previously customized, or by importing your own virtual machine or VM images. Each AWS region maintains its own listing of the AMIs. Any AMIs that you create are available only within a specific region unless you copy them to another regions. So now you can see that in here There are different ones. So we have Amazon Linux, macOS, Ubuntu, Windows, Red Hat, and also you can just browse AMIs. Now the important point is this, that we're using the free tier, and if I choose Amazon Linux because we want to create that, and if I choose the machine, you can see that these two comes under the free tier. So we have Amazon Linux 2AMI, and also we have the 2AMI kernel, this one. So from here, for example, we want to just choose this it comes under the free tier. We can just choose this, and after that, from here, this is the architecture. We don't want it. We want it should be 64-bit, and we want the default one. This is the Amazon machine image ID, and after that, we have another thing that's called instance types. Okay, so now when building these two machines, you need to choose your hardware resources from a broad set of pre-configured options by selecting a specific instance type. For example, your instance has a number of virtual CPUs and also a specific amount of RAM. So you can see that this T2.micro, it comes under the free tier eligible. And as I've already mentioned, that for example, the instance will have a number of virtual CPUs or vCPUs and also amount of RAM, you can see. But this is under the free tier. Now, if you choose another one, you will be costed for that. Okay, so we want to just choose T2.micro. And when you create your account, there will be a 1-year free tier that you can use it. Okay, now after doing that, we have another thing that's called keep here. Okay, now this is important because if, for example, if you want SSH to your, for example, instance, then this is important. Now by default, Linux, so we have created Amazon Linux. Now Linux Amazon EC2 instance provides remote access through SSH. And Windows Amazon EC2 instances provide remote access through the Remote Desktop Protocol or RDP. So to connect to these services, you must have the appropriate and bound rules on the security groups. Right now, we haven't learned about that. We will talk about that depending on the operating system and AMI that you use to launch the instance. Now, a default administrator is provided for your initial sign-in to acquire the credentials needed to sign in as a default user. You must specify an Amazon EC2 keep here when you launch the instance. After you sign in, you can create additional users with appropriate Linux or Windows tools. Okay, so now in here, the first thing is that we need to create a keep here. Now an Amazon EC2 keep here has a name, and it's composed of a public key and a private key. AWS retains the public key, and it's your responsibility to store that private key securely. If you specify an Amazon EC2 keep here, when you launch the instance, it secures the sign-in credentials as part of the Amazon EC2 instance provisioning process. Okay, so for example, if you see I have a one key, but I want to create a new key, you can just click on the key, and I can just say new key. So you need to give the key, this should be RSA, and this should be .pm, and we can just click on create keep here. Okay, and also it will be downloaded because we will need this. Now after doing that, now this is the network setting, and in here we need to create our security group. Now security groups acts as a stateful firewall for your Amazon EC2 instances. When you define security group rules, you specify the source or destination of the network traffic in addition to the protocols and ports that you allow. If you change the security group rules, that change propagates to any instances associated with that security groups. By using inbound security group rules, you can control the source, protocol, and ports of allowed network traffic. For example, you could allow TCP connections that originates from the IP4 addresses of your home network so that you can administer an Amazon EC2 instance using SSH. Outbound rules enables you to control destination. So in the security group, you will have the inbound rule and also outbound rules. Now outbound rules enables you to control destination protocols and ports of allowed network traffic. So now security groups include a default outbound rule that allow all outbound requests on the protocol and ports to all destinations. So now you can choose an existing security group from here. So I have some security groups in here. I can choose that from here, or I can just create a new one. So I want to just click on create new one because I want to show you. So you can see that in here, this is the name launch wizard 4 this will be. And we have allow SSH traffic, and also we want to, for example, choose allow HTTP traffic from the internet. Now you can see that this is anywhere. Also you can add your custom IP address or your own IP address. We want the traffic, any traffic. So you can see that rules with this source allow all IP addresses to access your instance. We recommend setting security group rules to allow access from unknown IP addresses. So we want choose anywhere, okay? And after that, now this is the storage. So now by default, free tier eligible customers can get up to 30 GB of EBS or Elastic Block Store, general purpose SSD, or magnetic storage. So you want just 8.1. This should be GP2 because it's under the free tier. And after that, this is the summary, and we want to just click on launch instance. So now it will take a little bit. Let's wait for the launching. And now if I just go to the, so now that's created, if I just go to the EC2 instance, and if I just go to the instance running, so right now you will not see because it will take a little bit. It's right now on the pending mode. So now you can see the instance is created and that's running. Now these are the information about the instance that we have. For example, this is the details that we have. For example, this is the platform, this is the different of AMI name, and we have these information about this, and also we have, for example, security, that you can get the security information, like security groups that we have. Now we have, you can see that we have the inbound rules. These are the 2 rules that we have. And also we have for example networking, and also this is the networking, a public IP4 address. We have a storage. Now we'll talk more about this is the status check. Okay, so right now you can see that we have created this, and in the next lesson we will run this. So now we have our EC2 instance and that's running. Now let's just learn that how we can run this. Okay, so you can see that we have some information about that EC2 instance, like security group, TNAME, and also the public IP4 and also private IP4, the availability zone, that's on the US East 1D. So now there are different ways that you can run this. Now the first way is that you can choose this. You can just go to the connect. So the first way, the easiest way is that you can use EC2 instance client, and this is the public, and this is the username EC2. If I just click on connect, you will see that that will be connected. Okay, so now let's just wait for the connection. Now this was the first way. Now the second way, that if you, for example, if you're using Mac or Linux, you can just use the SSH client and you can just do this command. Okay, so but also with the Windows, if you're using, for example, Windows 10 or above, then for that also you can use the terminal. So I will show you, but first let's just check it. Okay, so now you can see that I'm in the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. For example, now I can just update. So if I say if I just copy this and if I paste it in here and hit enter, so you can see that it is working and it's updating. Okay, and now you can see that it is working. Okay, so now we have done this. So now this is the first way. Another way is that, as I've already mentioned, that if you're using Mac or Linux, you can just use this. But for this, you should have the key that we already have created, that new key.pm. We need to use that. Now for the Windows users, if you're using Windows 10 or above, then for that, you can just open the terminal. Make sure that you're in the folder that you have we will talk about this. Make sure that in the new key PM. So this is our key, and in here I can just say SSH. So if I say SSH, you can see that we have this, and I can just say SSH. So SSH -i and new key.pm. So this is the key that we have, new key.pm. And after that, we need to just say EC2 user, and we need to just copy the public IP address. So we can just go to our instance and instance running. And from here, if I see, so in the let's just find it in the security, in the networking. Yeah, in the networking, we have private IP4 and also we have public. We are going to just copy this and we can just paste it in here. Okay, after that, hit enter. So I can just say yes. And now we are on the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. Now another way is that you can use MobiXterm. You can download that, and after that you can just install that. So first let me just delete this session. So for example, I can just go to the session and I want to just create a new session. And from here, we need to just give the remote host. for that. So now in here we need to just open these two instances, and after that we need to just copy the so public IP4, we need to just copy this DNS, and we can just paste it in here. And after that, in the advanced settings, we are going to just use private key, and in here we need to just get the key, so new key PM, okay. And after that we can just click on OK. So now let's just wait, it is connecting. So login as EC2 user, and now you can see that we are in the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. In this lesson, I want to show you that how you can launch a Windows EC2 instance or Windows Server. So we can just go, so right now you can see that we have, this is for the Linux. Now I want to just launch another instance. So I can just say launch instances. And from here, I can just say, for example, you can just name it whatever you want. So I can just say, for example, Windows I or Windows instance. You can just give it whatever you want. Okay. So after doing that, we need to just specify the application OS image. And for this, we are using Windows. We can just click on Windows, and you can see that this server 2000, this is you can see that for the Windows we have a lot of options that they are under the free tier eligible. We want to just choose one of this. For example, I want to just choose this one. This is under the free tier. And after doing that, now this is the T2.micro. We need to choose that because that is for the free. And for the key pair, we already have a key, and we can just use that new key. And for this, we can just use the existing security group, and let's just go here. Or no, we need to just create another security group for this. Because for this, we need to use RDP traffic, and this will be launch wizard 5. And after that, this is 30 GB. We can just make it, for example, to 15. GP2, and now we have one instance, and after that we can just click. So you can see that free tier in your first tier include 750 hours of T2.micro, or if T2.micro is not available, we will have T3.micro in the region in which T2.micro is unavailable. Instance usage on free tier AMIs per month: 30 GB of elastic block storage, 2 million iOS, 1 GB of snapshots, and 100 GB of bandwidth to the internet. So we can just click on launch instance. So let's wait for that. Volume, okay, smaller than a snapshot. Okay, let's just delete this. I think it should be in the advanced details. We don't have any snapshot. Okay, volume of size of 15 GB is smaller than snapshot expected greater than 30 GB storage volume. So let's just change this to 30 because we will have 30, and let's just say, and let's just click on launch instance. Okay, so now the instance is launched, and let's just go to the view all instances. And now you can see that that's pending, and it will take a little bit. You can see that we have some information. This is the security group, this is the key name, and we don't have any monitoring and public IP4. So let's just wait for this, and it's right now on the pending mode. So now it's on the running mode. Let's just select this, and we have the information about this. Let's just run this. So we can just click on connect, and from here we want to just use RDP client, and after that we want to just use connect using RDP client. So now the first thing is you can connect to your Windows instance using a remote desktop client of your choice, and by downloading and running the RDP shortcut file below. So first we need to just download the remote desktop file, and now that's downloaded. After that, we need to just click on get password. Okay, so in the get password, now we need to just wait. Password is not available for right now, but please wait at least 4 minutes after launching an instance before trying to retrieve an auto-generated password. So we need to just wait at least for the 4 or 5 minutes, it will create an auto-generated password for us. So now you can see that get Windows password. After that, we need to just use this new key .pm that we have. So we can just click on OK. And after that, we want to decrypt the password. Okay, so now the password is decrypted. And now I can just run this and let's just wait, connect. So now we need to just copy this password and we need to just paste it in here. So in this section, and we can just click on OK. So now let's just wait. Yes. So now you can see it's working, and it will take a little bit for the launching, and you can just minimize or maximize that from here. Personalized settings, and okay, so now you can see that this is our Windows server and that's working. And I can just maximize this, or I can just minimize this, and that's working. Okay, so let's just close that. Okay, so now we have learned that how we can create our EC2 instances. We have created Windows and also Linux. Now, when you're not using for example, the instances, it's a good idea to remove them. Okay, so you can just select these two, and after that you can just click on terminate instance and terminate. Okay, so because we don't need that. If you don't need, then you need to just shut down the instances, and it will be shut down. And if I go to the EC2 dashboard now, it will be in here and this section. Okay, so you can see shutting down. In this lesson, we want to learn about user data with EC2 instances. Now, when you launch an instance in Amazon EC2, you have the option of passing user data to the instance that can be used to perform common automated configuration tasks and even run scripts after the instance starts. So now let's just do that. That's how we can add user data. So first of all, I'm going to just launch a new instance. So I can just launch instances. And after that, we need to just say, for example, user instance or whatever you want, you can just name it. And for the application, so for the AMI, I'm using Amazon Linux 2 AMI, and this should be t2.micro. And for the key pair, we are going to just use the, for example, new key pair. And for the security group, you can just create a new one, or you can just choose one of the security groups that we already have in here. For example, the 4 should be good. Okay, and after doing that, now this is the configuration. Now the important point is that how we can add or pass user data. We can just click on advanced details, and we can just come down, and in here we have something that's called user data, and we can paste this. Okay, so in here we want to just update. After that, we want to just install an Apache server, and after that we can just echo. We can just create an index.html, and we can just write this thing. Okay, so please subscribe to my channel to that. So now, so this is the summary. After that, we can just click on launch instance. So now let's just wait. It's launching the instance. Okay, so after that, we can just go to the view all instances, and it will show all the instances that terminated that we already have terminated. But for example, we can just go to the instance running, and in here we will not see because the instance state is running, and it will take a little bit. So let's just wait. Okay, so now the instance is running, and for example, if I just choose if I go to the networking, so this is the public IP4 address. I can just copy this, and for example, it will take, let's just wait some time. Now let me just go here. So now we can see that we have our user data in here. Please subscribe to my channel, and it's working. And if I go to the index.html, and it will show us. Okay, so so this was this. Also, you can update the user data if you want. So you can just go to the instance setting and edit user data. And to edit the user data, the first thing is that first you need to just stop that. So you can see that to edit your instance user data, first you need to stop that, not terminate. So for example, if you terminate, then this will be shut down and it will be terminated. But for the stop instance, you can also just restart the instance again. Okay, so you can just stop that instance, and after that you can just update or edit your user data. Okay. In the previous lesson, we have learned that how we can create our EC2 instances using AWS Management Console. Now in this lesson, we want to learn that how we can create our EC2 instances using Python. Now the first thing is that we are going to import Boto3, and after that we need to create an EC2 resource. Okay, so we already have talked about resource and also client. Now resource is the higher level and the client is the lower level. So now it's recommended that a lot of time use the resource if that service is available. As I've already mentioned, that there are services that are not available in resource, then on that time you need to use client. Okay, so for this we are going to use the resource, and after that I can just say EC2, and now we are going to just create a response and EC2 resource dot create instance. Okay, so we can just use create underscore instances. Now we need to add some attributes like image ID. Now the first one is the image ID, and we need to choose the image ID or AMI, Amazon or AMI or Amazon Machine image. So you can just get that. For example, if I just go to the so launch instance, and here launch instance, and in this section you will see that we have the image ID. So at the bottom, AMI ID. I can just copy this. I can just paste it in here. After that, you need to specify the main count. So I want to create one EC2 instance. And also you need to specify the max count. It should be 1. After that, we need to specify the instance type. Okay, so now this is the important. For this, we are going to use t2.micro because this is under the free tier. Okay, so t2.micro. After doing that, we need to give the key name. Now for the key name, we already have downloaded the key name, and I can just copy that key name, and I can just paste it in the EC2 examples. Okay, so this is my key, and then here I can just say my key. Now it's time to specify the security group. Okay, so security groups, and for the security groups, so it should be security groups. We already have talked that in the security group you will have inbound rule and also outbound rules. Now we have some security groups. If I go to the security groups, I have 8 of them. Now let me just show you one of them, this launch wizard 4. If you see, we have inbound rules and outbound rules. We have 2 permission entries, and for the inbound rules you can see that we have the HTTP and also SSH, and the source is all traffic. Also you can edit the inbound rules. You can just go to the edit inbound rules. If you want, you can just edit them. Okay, so now we want to just use this launch wizard 4 that's created in our AWS console. We want to just use that, and this is the name. Okay, after that we are done. We can just print the response. Okay, and now let's just save it and let's just run it. Okay, create instances. So instances. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, so now you can see that EC2 instance is created with this ID. Okay, and now if I just go to the EC2 dashboards, if I go to the instance running, right now we have just one, and that's because right now that's in the pending mode. We need to just wait for that it comes in here. Now when you create an EC2 instance, it will take a little bit to be booted, and it will be available in here. Right now this was the previous one that we already have created, the user instance. For the user data, yeah, now you can see that this is the new instance. It's the t2.micro, and that's created in this availability zone, and this is the so we copied this my key for this, but you can use any key that you want, a new key, and you can see that it's working, and we have created our EC2 instance using Python and also Boto3. So you can just run this. You can just go to the connect, And from here, for example, we are going to just use the EC2 client. Let's wait. So right now it's initializing, and let me just go to the EC2 dashboard. Instance running. It's initializing. Let's wait, and because it's initializing, for this reason we are not seeing that. Let's just go here, instance running. Okay, now if I just connect this, and now we have this, so let's just connect that. Also in here, if you see, we have created, for example, the Amazon Linux, we have added that image ID, but you can create Windows Server and there is no problem. You need to just use this configuration, but you need to just change the image ID, okay, to that one. Okay, so now we have on the Amazon Linux to AMI. In the previous lesson, we have learned that how we can create an EC2 instances using Python. Now, in this lesson, I want to show you that how you can terminate an EC2 instances. So, for example, if you're using AWS Management Console, you will know that you can just choose that, and after that, you can just go to the instance state, and from here, you can stop or terminate or reboot an instance. But you want to terminate the instance using Python. So now the first thing is that we are going to import Boto3. So I can just import Boto3, and after that, I can just hit diff terminate, for example, instance, and we want to just pass the instance ID. Okay, so according to the ID, we want to just terminate that instance. Now the first thing is that we are going to use client, so we want to create an EC2 client. So I can just say boto3.client, and I can just say EC2, and now I can just create a response in here, EC2 client dot terminate. So I can just say terminate underscore instances. Okay, instances, and after that we need to pass the instance ID. Okay, so instance IDs, and I can just make that to the instance ID, and we can just print the response on here. Okay, so you can just use terminate instances from the client. Okay, and you can terminate the instance according to specific instance ID. So if I just call this terminate instance function, and after that we need to specify the instance ID. If you see this is the ID, I can just copy this ID. So so you can just get that from the details. Okay, AMI ID. So it should be instance summary. Yeah, this is the instance ID. We can just copy that, and we can just paste it in here. So now if I just run this, okay, so now that is terminated, and if I just refresh this, you will see that now that is terminated, and we don't have that. And let's just choose this one, and I can just copy the instance ID, and I want to terminate this also, paste it, and let's just run it. And now if I just refresh it, you can see no instances. The two instances right now, because it's running and we are not seeing. If I remove this, you'll see that I have all instances that they are terminated and also shutting down. Okay, so this is the newest one that is newly terminating itself. We have learned that how we can create our EC2 instances. In this lesson, we want to learn about another service of AWS that's called Amazon RDS, or Amazon Relational Database Service. So Amazon Relational Database Service is a web service that makes it easier to set up, operate, and scale a relational database in the AWS cloud. It provides cost-effective, resizable capacity for an industry-standard relational database and manage common database administration tasks. And there are different engines, database engines that you can use in the RDS. So we have MySQL, Postgres. Now let me just show you. You can just go to the RDS, and from here you can just click on the RDS. or relational database service. So from here you can see that we have databases, and from here you can just create your database. Okay, right now I don't have any database, or if you go to the dashboard, now we don't have anything in here. So we can just go to the database, and from here we can just say create database. Now, as I've already mentioned, that there are different topics that concepts that you need to know. Now, the first one is the database engine, or a DB engine. So a DB engine is a specific relational database software that runs on your DB instance. Amazon RDS currently supports different engines like MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server, and also Amazon Aurora. So you can see that these are the engine options. So we want to use MySQL because we want to work with the MySQL. And also you can see after that we have the MySQL, that's community. And because we are in the free, we want to use the free tier. So right now in the production in the template, we want the free tier. So free tier, and now this is the MySQL version. Make sure that you choose free tier. If you don't choose this, then you will be pay for the production option. Okay, so now for example, if I choose free tier, you can see that these availability and durability concepts will be disabled, and that's because it's not under the free tier. If I choose production, for example, you can just use the multi-availabilities on DB clusters or instances, but we want the free tier and we are not interested for this. Okay, and after that you need to give the DB instance identifier. For example, I can just give it MYDB, and after that the username. So the username is admin. I don't want to change that, and we need to give a password for that. Okay, so I can just say password, and let's just confirm the password. So password. And after that, now we have another thing, and that's called DB instance classes. Okay, now so right now if you see that we are on the free tier, and if you choose production, then this will be standard class or memory optimized class will be enabled. Okay, and now because we are on the free, then this will not be enabled. Okay, because we are on the free, and now that's disabled. And also a DB instance class determine the computation and memory capacity of a DB instance. Each instance type offers different compute memory and storage capabilities. So for example, if you see in here, we have db.tree.micro like this. Okay, and so now for the free tier, we are going to just use this one. Okay, and this db.t2.micro, this one. And after that we have the storage, and for the storage now for the free tier you need to just use general purpose SSD or GP2, and allocated the storage, for example, I can just give it 20. Okay, and also we don't need the auto scaling. So now the auto scaling provides dynamic scaling support for your database storage based on your application needs. We don't need this, we can just disable that. And so you want to just use the default VPS, and we want it should be publicly accessible, so we can just, for right now, we can just make it yes. And also for the additional configuration, if you see, this is a port, database port, and I think we are done with that. Now make sure that you choose the free tier. If you choose another one, then maybe you'll pay for that. Okay, and you can see that estimately monthly costs. The Amazon RDS free tier is available to you for 12 months each calendar month. The free tier will allow you to use the Amazon RDS resources listed below. 750 hours of Amazon RDS in a single availability zone, or db.t2.micro. If that's not available, then you can use db.3.micro or db.t4g.micro instances. And 20 GB of general purpose storage or SSD, and 20 GB for automated backup storage, and any user initiated DB snapshots. So we can just click on create database. Okay, so now let's just wait, and it will take a little bit to be created. So now if I see, you can see that's creating. Okay, and that's creating. All right, now the database engine is created, and that's available. This is the size, these are the information about that. Now, if I just choose this, if I just click on this, you will see that we have some information. But let's create a connection. So you can see that we have the endpoint, we have the port. Let's create a connection between for our this MySQL DB engine. So for that, I'm using MySQL Workbench. I can just open that, and after that, I can just go to the so in here, I can just click on this. I want to add a new connection, and from here, first we need to just choose this the endpoint. I can just copy this, and I can just paste it. So first we need to give the connection name. So for example, YTCon, and the host name. This is the port. The username was admin, and also we need to just give the password. So let me just say password, and let me click on OK, and after that click on OK. Okay, so now we can just click on YTCon. Let's just wait. So now in here, if I say show databases, and if I just run the query, if I execute the query, so let me just execute that, and it's fetching the data, it's fetching, and let's just wait. Okay, so now we can see we have this. Now let's create a database. So I can just say create database, and for example, I can just say YT or whatever you want. You can just give it, and now if I just run it, okay, one row affected. And now if I say show databases, so let me just let me remove this, and now if I say show databases, it's fetching, and now you will see that I have YT database. Okay, so now that's created. Okay, now we are going to just create a table in our this database that we have. So for this, I can just say, for example, use YT, and after that, let's execute this. And now I can just create the table. Okay, so I can just say create a table, for example, person, and in here in the person table we want some fields. For example, we can just give ID integer, and I can just say primary key, so primary key. We need the, for example, last name. We can just give, it should be, for example, varchar and 255, and also, for example, first name varchar 255. Okay, so now if I run this, you'll see that it will create a person table. So let's just execute this query. Okay, so now you can see that that is created, and now if I just say show table, let me just remove this, and if I say show tables, and now if I just run this, execute this, okay, so you can see we have a person table. But right now, if I just say, for example, select all from person, if I just run this, you'll see that I don't have anything in here. So in my table, so now we don't have any data in here, and now I can just say, for example, insert into person, and we want to add in the last name and also first name fields, the values that are going to be added, so values, and that should be, for example, we can give a name and we can give a last name. And now if I just execute this, okay, one row affected. And now if I just say, so select all from person, let's just run this query. Okay, so now we can see ID, it starts from ID 0. We need to give the ID in here. So you can see that we have the first data, and that is added. In the previous lesson, we have learned that how we can work with the Amazon RDS or Relational Database Service using AWS Management Console. Now, in this lesson, we want to learn that how we can create our MySQL DB using Python and also Boto3. So now the first thing is that we want to import Boto3. I can just import Boto3. And after that, I'm going to just create a RDS client and Boto3.client, and I can just say RDS. So after that, I can just create my response in here and RDS client, and we can just use .create DB instance, And in here, we need to add some attributes and parameters. For example, first we need to specify the DB name. For example, I can just say YT RDS. And after that, we need to just specify the DB instance identifier. Okay, so identifier. Now this is important. But that's not important. You can give the same name in here, but the instance class and other attributes are important. So in here, for example, we want to just use that DB instance identifier, and we shouldn't have any type in here. Okay. After that, we need to specify the allocated storage, and for the allocated storage, I want to just give it 20, and also we need the DB instance class. Okay, so DB instance class. Now this is important because we should be under the free tier, so for that we can use db.t2.micro. okay, so DB instance class. Now after that, we need to specify the engine. It's also important because we are using MySQL, and after that we need to just give the master username. So master username, for example, I can just give the username password in here. So okay, so this is username, so I can just say admin, and also we need to give the password. So master user password, and I can just say password. Okay, so you need to give the username and also the password. After that, you need to specify the port, that is 3306, and after that we can just give the engine version. So engine version, for example, we can just give 8.0.27. and after engine version, we need also, we want it should be publicly accessible, so I can just say publicly accessible, and we want to just make it a true. Okay, and at the end we need to just give the storage type, so storage type, and that should be GP2. So GP2. Now these are the important setups that when you want to create a DB instance using Python, you need to just give this. So now let me just also print the response in here. So I can just say print response, and if there is no typo, if I run this, let me just run this. If there's a typo, it will show us. Okay, so port must be one of the DB name, DB. Okay, port should be uppercase. And now let's run it. Okay, so now that's created, the DB instance is created, and now if I just refresh it, so this was the previous one. Okay, so YTRDS, this is the thing that we have given in here, and let's just wait, it's creating. Okay, and let's just wait, it will take a little bit, so let's wait. All right, now we can see that we have our MySQL DB instance. So if I just choose this, if I just click on this, not choose this, you will see that we have our endpoint. And for example, let's just do some connection, and I can just create another connection, and let me just give, for example, RDS thoughts or whatever. So I can just paste it in here. This is the port. Now the username is admin, if you remember. So we had admin username, and this is the master password, and let's just give also this, so store password and password. Okay, and now let's just click on OK. So now we have RDS thoughts. Let's me click on that. So now if I say show databases, and if I just execute the query, so you can see that we have this in here. and that is working. Okay, so now we have that and it's working. So yeah, now like this we will use MySQL client for inserting, for example, or creating table, but right now we have our DB instance. In the previous lesson, we have created our MySQL DB instance using Python and also Bootstrap. Now let's do some operation. Now the first thing is that we need to install MySQL connector. It is a driver written in Python, which does not depend on MySQL, and we can use this for the MySQL. Okay, so we can just open the terminal in here, and in here I can just use pip install MySQL connector, and it will be installed. So after the installation, now we are going to just check the connection. So I can just say check con. So check con. First, I want to just check that I have a connection or not. So now that's installing collected packages. Okay, it will be installed. So now the first thing is that we need to just import MySQL connector, and I can just say import MySQL.connector as MC. And after that, I can create a try block, and in here I can just say db mc.connect, and first we need to give the host. Now if you see in here, we have the host, and that is this endpoint, and I can just copy that, and I'm going to just paste it in here. After that, we need to give the user. Now the user is admin. Also we have the password. Now the password is password, and we have the database. Okay, so the database is up. Now right now we haven't created a database, so let's create a database in here. So we can just use this YTRDS, but let me just create another one. I can just say create database. For example, I can just say YouTube thoughts, and let's just run it. Now if I just say show databases. Okay, so right now that it's let's wait, it will take a little bit. So you can see one row affected, and now if I just say show databases, and if I just execute this, you will see that now I have this YouTube thoughts, and now I can just go here and paste that in this section. Okay, and after that, if there is a connection, we can just say print connection created, and in the accept, so I can just accept mc.error as E, and I can just print that there is no connection. There is no connection. Okay, so now so right now if I just run this, so connection created, it means that there is a connection. Now for example, if I change something in here, so for example, let me remove this from this section, and now if I just run this, you can see that there is no connection because we don't have that. Okay, so let me just add this in here, and also you can just print, for example, okay, so we can also print that in here. So the error, I can just say so dot format E. Okay, and now right now if I just run this, you will see that let's wait. Okay, so connection created, but if I just remove this and if I just run it again, and you will see the unknown MySQL server host. Okay, and that's not working. And let's just make it back and like this, and if I run this, now you can see that we have the connection, and there is a connection. In the previous lesson, we have learned that how we can check the connection. Now in this lesson, I want to show you that how you can, for example, create table and how you can insert the data. Okay, so now let's just create another Python file. Let me just call it, for example, create table, and we are going to just copy some codes. So first we are going to just copy these codes and paste it in here. So these will be the configuration, and after that we need to create a cursor in here. And I can just say db.cursor, so cursor, And now we can just execute our query. So cursor.execute, and let's just say create table, and I can just say person, and I want to just create an ID. So ID and ID integer, I can just say auto increment. It should be also auto increment, and we can also give the primary key. We want the name, and it should be varchar or varchar, for example 255. And also, for example, we can just give the last name. Okay, so name, and also okay, last name. It should be varchar 255. Okay, so after doing that, so we can just say print that table is created. Okay, now if there is an error and if the table is not created, we can just grab that in the accept block, and I can just say accept mc.error as e, and I can just say that table is not created. Okay, so now let me just run this. So we have received that table is not created, but let's also check that where's the problem. Okay, so dot format e, and let's just run it again. Okay, you have an error in SQL syntax. Okay, so now maybe the problem is in here. Create table person, ID, auto increment, primary key. We have name varchar 255, last name varchar 2. Oh, okay, so in here we need to add a comma. We have forgot to do that. And now if I just run it, and if I check it, so let's wait. Okay, so now table is created and we have the table. Okay, and you can check that in here. So in this section, if I say I use, so if I say use, if I run it, and if I say show tables, you'll see that now I have the table. So if I just run it, and it's fishing. Okay, so now we have person table. Now let's insert some data to this table, and I can just create another file, and let me just say insert data, and we are going to just copy this configuration from here, and let me paste it in this section. And after doing that, also we need to just use this cursor. I can just copy some of the codes. Okay, so now in here, so we have our cursor. Now I can just get the name from the user, so I can just say input, and I can say please enter your name, and also we had last name, so input, please enter your last name. Okay, so now in the table, so if you see, we had name and also last name. The ID is auto created, auto incremented. So now after doing that, we need to create our query, and in the query I can just say insert into person table, in the name and also last name fields. The values that I want to add, we are going to use placeholder string like this. Okay, and now we can just say value. We want to add the name and also last name. After that, we need to execute the query. So cursor.execute, we want to execute the query, and also we want to just say the value. Okay, and we want to add the value. After that, we need to just commit the database, so db.commit, and also we can just print that data is inserted. And if there is an error, we can just accept mc.error as e, and we can just say cannot add the data. So let's just run it. So for example, we can give the name, please enter your last name. Okay, so data is inserted. And now if I just go, for example, if I just say select all from person, and I should see one data in here if I run it. So it's fetching. Okay, so now you can see we have one data. Let's just add another one. So for example, let's wait. So for example, John Doe. So now data is inserted, and if I just execute the query, you'll see that now I have two data. And okay, so now we have two of them. So now let's learn that how we can show the data. So I'm going to create another Python file, and I can just say show data. And in here, as always, we can just copy some configuration code from here, okay, and also the cursor. So now first I need to get the database name from the user, and I can just say db name, and I can just say input, please enter database name, and also we can just say tbl name or table name, input, please enter table name. And now after this, so after that, now we can just so we already have created the cursor. Now we can just execute the query. So cursor.execute, and I can just say select all from, and we can just say dot format from the table name or tbl name, so table name. And now we can create a result in here, and cursor dot fetch all. So we are going to just fetch all the data, and after that we can create a we need to iterate through the data. So for data and result, and we are going to just print the data, okay. And if there is an error, we can just grab that in the except block. So except mc.error as e, and we can print the e. So now if I just run it, so please enter the database name. So what was the database name? It was YouTube Thoughts. Please enter the table name, and the table name was person. Okay, so now you can see we have two data. So right now we have our DB instance. Now we want to delete this or remove this using Python and also Boto3. Now, for example, if you want to delete this using AWS Management Console, you can just choose that, and after that in the actions, you can just delete that, okay? Now we want to delete that using Python and also Boto3. Now the first thing is that we want to import Boto3, and after that we need to create an RDS client, and boto3.client RDS, and now we can create a response in here. And I can just say RDS client dot delete underscore DB underscore instance. So the first thing is that we need to specify the DB instance identifier. And if you remember, when we have created our DB engine, so where is it? Okay, so there was a DB identifier. I can just copy this and I can just paste it in here, okay. And we don't need the snapshot, so I can just say skip final snapshot. I can just make it to false, and also final DB snapshot identifier. So I can just say or I don't need this also. I think we want to just skip that, and so let me just run it. So we can just print the response in here. Let's just run, we want to check. Okay, an error occurred invalid when calling the delete DB instance operation. Final is required unless skip is specified. Okay, so okay, skip final snapshot. Okay, we want to make it true because we don't want to create a snapshot. If you make it to false, it means that we want to create, and then you need to specify the name of the snapshot. Okay, and now let's just run it. Okay, so now that's deleted. Now in here, make point one thing. So for example, if you make it to false, what it means that we, after the removing of this, DB instance, we want to create a snapshot. Then if you make it to false, then you need to you want to create a snapshot, and after that you need to specify the final DB snapshot identifier. So you need to give identifier, and you need to give something like RDS snapshot. Okay, so if you make it to false, it means that you want to create, but we don't need to create a snapshot, and we want to just make it true. It means that we want to skip that process creating of the snapshot. And now if I refresh this, now snapshots will be in here. Okay, so in the snapshots, and now that's available. It shouldn't be available. Okay, let's wait. Okay, we have an internet connection problem. Let's just wait. So now you can see that it's deleting, and it will be deleted.